bringing you everything from the sensually sublime to the hardcore subjects guaranteed to make you cringe, blush, and maybe even toss your cookies. The National Organization for Sensual Safety presents new and safe ways to play inside the bedroom and out. Because if you don't know what you're doing, things can go terribly wrong. This is the only BDSM and kink safety show for people who never want their sexual exploration to end.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I've taken a long time to do this post because I was really hesitant. It's a very dangerous topic, and I'm in no way encouraging these acts. My heart is to bring safety concerns to the forefront of otherwise taboo subjects that people just won't discuss. The topic that we're talking about is breath play, also known as autoerotica when you're alone or choking someone in the bedroom. It has very graphic details on this show, and it's not intended for listeners under the age of 18. So please don't listen if you are. I posted this as explicit adult material for that reason. We're going to be talking to Richard Harig. He is into risk-aware consensual kink, also known as RAC, and he'll be talking more about that in the show. Listen, this is not something that you go into after reading a book and trying to dominate someone in the bedroom. But I have heard so many stories from women that go out with men who read some BDSM materials and try to be their dominant. Next thing they know, they're getting choked by some guy who, number one, you just don't do that if it's not consensual. I don't mean to sound preachy, but when you go into a form of play like this, the person that you're playing with knows what you're going to be doing. You may enjoy the element of surprise, we all do, but it is not something to be taken lightly. It can result in death, and that is not a joke. There are plenty of cases where police are called out to sites that someone has died doing this. Richard's going to be talking about that. It's very serious. I think you're going to enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. And again, happy, healthy, safe sex for everyone.
Okay, good evening. Tonight we're talking to Richard, and we're talking about a great subject that is also a very dangerous subject. It can be, but very fun. It's breath play. So we have Richard with us tonight, and he's specialized in respiratory therapy, and he's given several demonstrations to kinky and BDSM groups across the country. He's done demos for choking, blood and airway, strangulation, smothering, hand over mouth, as well as bags and latex sheeting. And he always spends a great deal of time discussing safety and promoting the latest CPR techniques out of Europe, and he'll be talking about those a little bit in the show. He's a guest speaker on the syndicated morning talk show, the Todd and Tyler Radio Empire. He mentors people interested in asphyxia of all forms, from health risks to medical conditions and hands-on teaching, and we are so excited to have you here with us. So thanks so much for coming. Why don't you start off, Richard, by telling us a little bit about your history and how you got into this?
I got into this about 22 years ago. I had a submissive who, at the time, I was just dating, and she saw that I was rather assertive, and she wanted me trained. She enjoyed breath play. I mentored with a couple for about 3 months or so. I became certified in CPR, became certified as an instructor in CPR, and then from there, my horizons grew. Over the next 5 to 10 years, I tried to learn everything that I could about it, mentored under a few people, taught a few people. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, it's my background is I have asthma, and I've always had asthma. My doctor told me that, hey, you've got a good head on your shoulders. Why don't you see if you can do something with it? And I went in and started doing pre-med for respiratory therapy.
Wow.
That way I can help other people that have asthma. It also helps with the kinky lifestyle. You get first aid training, CPR training, You know the signs to look for. You know what type of person can do breath play and what type can't, because not everyone can do breath play. Medications, medical history, things of that nature disqualify somebody from safely doing breath play.
Wow, this is, it is, when I was going to do this podcast, I had so many people warn me this is very dangerous, and, you know, we have, you know how many deaths have actually, not how
yes.
many, but so many deaths have happened because people want to, you know, just choke their partner or even choke themselves while masturbating. And a local police friend of mine, actually, they get a lot of calls out to scenes about that. So right out the gate here, the listeners are probably wondering, is this something that I can do safely with my partner on a very light level without having all of this training? What do you think?
Most people already do. Most people either do face sitting, queening, or they do kinging if they're a guy, airway obstruction using dildo, penis, anything of that nature. A lot of women like a hand on their throat while they're being talked to, played with. A lot of things that you got to look out for, though, is the medical history of the person that you're playing with. If they're on alpha blockers, beta blockers, if they have high blood pressure, heart murmur, if they're prone to psychotic episodes, on heavy medication for antipsychotics, those are automatic disqualifiers. Mm-hmm. The person could either stop breathing, go into shock, cardiac arrest. And the main thing that you need to realize is if that happens and if you need to call 911, you need to be truthful from the get-go. Because if you start lying and trying to cover something up, then you're looking at a grand jury investigation. The EMTs have heard everything and they've seen everything.
Well, why don't you tell us, well, first I had a thought, is there a questionnaire that is accessible for people to kind of go through before they do breath play with their partners?
Just generally at demonstrations where people are either demonstrating or presenting breath play or asphyxia, you won't find literature or reading material. It is something, it's probably one of the more exclusive forms of BDSM.
Mm-hmm. Well, Richard, you and I are going to put together a questionnaire, okay?
That's fine.
At some point, it's I think it's definitely needed, you know, because
it is no more dangerous than fisting, and I'll give this as an example. Mm-hmm. If you were to fist a woman, and let's just say you're going to be an atypical guy, you go in, you wash your hands, you lube up, and you begin fisting the woman, and say you know, in the throes of passion, you nick her with your fingernail. You don't think anything about it. She enjoys it. You finish up. A few days later, you know, she starts to have a burning sensation when she urinates. She doesn't think anything about it and starts taking the little cranberry pills, you know, thinking it's a urinary tract infection. Mm-hmm. 3 days after that, she can't get out of bed. She's listless. She's almost non-responsive because what she has is a staph infection. And if she's not treated within a week, she can die from a staph infection. Her body can go sepsis. Okay. So asphyxia, it is a lot more, the consequences are a lot more immediate if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
And as opposed to any other form of BDSM, if you don't know what you're doing, you run the risk on almost any form of advanced BDSM of hurting somebody, potentially life-threatening.
Okay, well, let's talk about some basic forms that people do and some safe ways to do that, maybe. For instance, like a lot of couples, like you said, like put hands around each other's necks. Where is the right spot? I know I've tried to put my hand around my boyfriend's neck, and I don't exactly know where to put it. Where do I put the pressure with the fingers? And is that something you can describe?
The easiest way to experience breath play for the first time is a sleeper hold. Sleeper hold is where you'll wrap your arm around your submissive's neck, You want to make sure that their chin is lined up with your elbow. You're applying pressure with both sides of your arms equally to the throat. You have your other hand, for me, my left hand, pressing up against the crown of their skull, the base of their skull, pressing forward as my arm is flexing. In 8 seconds' time, that person will pass out.
Oh, my.
That is the easiest to do. And people don't understand why breath play. Why do it? You get an endorphin rush. You get an adrenaline rush. You immediately hit subspace. Depending on how your body works and how your mind works, if it's a fantasy, you will immediately orgasm. And your orgasm, if it's done during sex, it's 100 times more powerful than anything you've ever had.
Wow. So that's the power of this, is people almost get addicted to it, I would imagine.
Yes, I do not teach and I do not condone autoerotic asphyxia, where you do things to yourself without somebody present.
Okay, so that's what autoerotic asphyxia is when you are all by yourself.
Mm-hmm. The FBI in 1997 released a study, and they estimate between 500 and 1,000 deaths per year are probably related to autoerotic asphyxia. They're not sure because some suicides borderline, the guy's hanging. Was it autoerotic asphyxia or was it an actual depression-based suicide?
Wow. Okay, well those are great statistics. So if you are doing something like that for somebody, and would you recommend not going all the way to 8 seconds and seeing if they're going to pass out?
What I do is, the easiest way to do it is to tease people. Mm-hmm. That way you can see what their body's reaction is to what you're doing to them. For me, the common way to do it is 2 seconds on, 2 seconds off, 3 seconds on, 3 seconds off. You're building up the tension, you're building up the endorphin level. Not everyone, you can't do it to everyone. Say you're a female dom and you want to do it to your male submissive. If he's got a rather thick neck, like he was a football player or a boxer, you're not going to be able to get his carotid artery pinched properly. Mm-hmm. For doing the actual choking, a lot of people make the mistake and they'll grab that Adam's apple there. The Adam's apple only takes about 6 pounds of pressure to crush.
Oh, gosh.
And then once they crush the Adam's apple, they'll start to hemorrhage internally and drown on their own blood. So the rule of thumb is when you're choking somebody to either go towards the base of their neck underneath the Adam's apple or right up under the chin.
Okay, or I'm definitely not getting near the Adam's apple. Okay, or kind of like you were describing when your arms, it seems like that's kind of safe when your arms are around their neck. It's almost, you're getting the sides rather than right in the front of the neck.
Yes, because their Adam's apple will be right in your joint of your arm. Mm-hmm. That's why you line up the elbow even with their chin. That way you're making sure that if your arm is too low and you're doing a low choke as opposed to a high choke or a high sleeper hold, that you're not crushing the Adam's apple, the larynx.
Okay, this is great information. Now, you talked about face sitting. And
yes.
How I did hear a horrible story of a woman that suffocated a man, and she thought he was having a great orgasm, so she didn't realize, but he died. Yes. So let's talk about face sitting for a minute. And I know a lot of our listeners are like, what the heck is that? I've never heard of it.
Face sitting is a common practice. Most people won't even think about it. If the man gives oral sex to a woman, mm-hmm. and the woman applies her pressure down upon his face, that is face sitting. Some women like to grind as the person is applying oral sex. Mm-hmm. Face sitting does not have to have oral sex applied to it at all. It can be just a strict power or a mind over body to try and break down the submissive's will. Mm-hmm. What'll happen, it's done multiple different ways, clothed, nude, oiled, or in latex. Your best seal will be formed if the female is nude and oiled up.
Oh, wow.
The oil will make a barrier, a seal, mm-hmm. so that as the woman's got her pussy pressed over the guy's face, it's primarily going to be over his nose and mouth. Standard is where the guy is spread eagle. restrained, the easiest thing to do is she'll do that for like 2 seconds on, 2 seconds off, and going like that, feathering back and forth, bringing him to near unconsciousness, and then potentially even putting him out.
Okay. But 8 seconds is the rule, is what is there as well?
That's what I do, and that's what I tell anyone to do until they get a good firm grasp of it, or unless I am there to show them what to do, because there are warning signs to look for when you've gone too far. There's going to be 2 positions you use for face sitting. Either you're going to be looking at his feet, or you're going to be looking at the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at the wall, you're going to see the top of his forehead more than likely. It's going to start to turn different colors. You don't want it to go any deeper than crimson, because you're choking off the blood supply to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a harder time if you're looking towards his feet, because you're not going to be able to tell his face. But you're going to see as he's heaving, as his back is arching, that the tighter it arches and he's not struggling wildly, it's a taunt on all of the restraints. That's the time that you have to give that person some air.
Okay. Woo! It's turning me on just hearing you talk about it. Okay, but again, it's probably safer to be then where you can see his face, I imagine.
Yes, it is. A lot of beginners should start that way. You don't even have to tie the person down spread eagle. You could have them rest their head on a sofa, restrain their hands behind their back with, I wouldn't use metal handcuffs because they'll cut in, because as the body goes into fight or flight mode, they'll naturally pull on whatever is restraining them. And if it's metal, it could cut into their capillaries and damage their wrist, carpal tunnel issues, things to watch out for there. So rope or leather. But you have them lay their head back, their butt's on the ground, they're leaning back against the sofa, and you can either press your body into them, or you could actually ride their face right there.
Okay. What other kinds of breath play are there that are so...
Kinging. A lot of people don't understand kinging. It would be hard to even find a definition on the internet. What that'll be is an obstruction-based breath play, where the woman is tied spread eagle. It should only be done with somebody who can deep throat, because you're going to place your cock in their mouth past the point of no return for most people. When the cock, if the person is well endowed, gets in the throat, the body will take over, and the swallowing mechanism, known as peristalsis, will take over, and the person will forget about trying to breathe and actually try and swallow whatever's in their throat, pushing the penis deeper into the throat.
Okay.
And that will block off breathing.
And tell us how you would go about doing this and stay safe with the woman.
Staying safe. A lot of people are worried that she'll bite your dick off, and that won't happen. Once the object...
Hey, how about worrying that you're going to choke her to death?
Well, yeah, but we're thinking on the guy's side here.
Okay.
The guy... Most of them think, well, she'll bite my dick off, and that won't happen, because once you get to that point, if you're well endowed, we'll say 8 inches at least, once you get your member at least 6 inches into her mouth, it'll start getting into the throat cavity itself, and she'll try and swallow it. When she tries to swallow, she's not going to clamp down on you.
Okay.
The problem is when she does need that breath and you're going to push it in farther, you only do that for about 8 seconds or so. Otherwise, you could risk her vomiting, even with the best deep throat queen.
So we have 8 second rule.
8 seconds is a good rule of thumb for a beginner.
Now, let me tell you, I just want to interject that some men do like being bit down on, but that's another show for another time. Okay, so we have, talk to us about other kinds, like asphyxia with...
I've done all forms of asphyxia, including drowning and hanging, and neither of those need to be done with anyone that does not have somebody with years of experience.
Okay, but what do those things mean? Can you just tell us?
hanging is simply that. The person is on a block, a book, a stool. They're on their tiptoes with a noose around their neck.
Oh, you're kidding. You've actually played that way.
Yes.
The hanging. Wow, okay.
Noose is rigged so it will not constrict down upon the person. The way that you do that is you can put a block in it, you can put a knot in it, you can get a specially rigged noose. You don't put it behind a person's ear, it's more or less lined up with the back of the spine. So what they're going to do is they are going to strangle themselves on their tiptoes, and you can't even have somebody off the ground. For that, they need to be height-weight proportionate. If you put too much pressure on the neck, it will... they can basically behead themselves without actually losing their head. What happens is the skull comes free of the spine.
Oh, right.
The neck isn't broken, the head is still attached, but you run the risk when that happens of pressure being put on the spinal column, your brain stem, you can... Yeah, it's
a no-go. We don't do that unless we really know what we're talking. Okay, so and you described there was another kind that you talked about.
Drowning. Drowning is very, very, very risky.
So you do breath play with water then?
Water, yes.
Wow.
I do that in interrogation scenes. When I have somebody tied up at some point, if I want to do an interrogation or waterboarding, I've done waterboarding to people before. Go ahead.
No, just waterboarding is definitely. I'm going to write that down and make sure we do that as a show one time because that's a topic all on its own, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It was originally a form of torture. It can be a form of torture per se. If you're doing it in play, not so much. But for interrogation scenes, it's classic interrogation scene anymore.
Okay. How about other? Okay, so let's. This is very scary for me. We're giving this to a lot of listeners that, and I hope people are hearing that they should be afraid. This isn't something to just be done, taken lightly. But also, my question to you too is it something that you would do with somebody that you are really close to, that you kind of begin to understand their body and their how they work? How much of that goes into it?
A lot of that goes into it. When I'm doing demonstrations and presentations, a lot of that is people will come up and want to try different things, and I will try different things on them. Mostly the basic things, the demo dolls, the people that I have that volunteer for me to show on people where I'm using latex sheets or plastic bags or garrots.
What's a garrote? What is a garrote?
A garrote, it would be a thin cord with wooden handles. You'll loop it over somebody's back. You'll put your knee into their back most times, and you'll pull back.
Okay, understand. Now, I just want to say that, because of this book, 50 Shades of Grey, you get these guys taking these women home and trying to be dominant and choke them. And this is why I'm doing this show, because it is not something for people to mess around with. I just want
No, and it's a horrible book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. So
that's what got my interest, and they had questions on a local radio show that's syndicated, and I called up and was explaining various fetishes, and now whenever they have fetishes come up or something odd happens in the news, I call up and explain it to people to make it easier for them to digest.
That's good.
And a lot of things, the main thing is the breath play, the choking. People don't understand why, how it went wrong.
Right. Oh, so what would you say to tell us about one of your favorite scenes? Can you do that?
Yeah, my favorite scene is either with one or two people. I did a demonstration in Iowa where I used a latex sheet to smother two women who were tied in chairs back to back.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Okay, go on.
Well, with the latex, I was using a transparent purple latex, so you could see their mouth opening as they were trying to breathe. It would be drawn into their mouth. They're both breathing out of the same amount of air 3 foot by 3 foot sheet of latex. I'd give them some air and then pull tight with it at other points in time. It elicits a response in people who are extremely sexually aroused by breath play.
Wow.
Both women orgasmed while giving a demonstration to the room of people.
And that was just by constricting their breath.
Yes, just with a lot of people, the scariest thing you will do is anything that completely envelops their head.
Yes.
So bags, latex sheets, gas masks, rebreathers, anything that completely covers their head bugs people.
Now, how would you find out if these women are doing demonstrations? What was the safe thing that you did if they let you know it was too much? I mean, how did you gauge
There
that?
isn't.
Okay.
I play RAC, which is risk-aware consensual kink.
Mm-hmm.
I know the people that I'm playing with. I explain everything that's going to happen. One of the people who was a demo doll was my wife, and the other person was somebody that I knew. I talked to the person who was hosting me, explained everything to her. She was interested in it, and we went from there. I did some small things to see how her body reacted. The more she craved, the more I gave her.
Okay. All right. Good. So, risk-aware consensual kink. That is very good for us to know. People they're going into it and they know the risks involved.
Yeah, there are two schools of thought. There is SSC, which is safe, sane, consensual. Most dungeon play parties go by that rule set there. That's going to be safe words. If the person's gagged, they have something they can drop to let them know that they're done with the scene. RAC is different. RAC is going to be done with committed couples. They don't use safe words. The Dom knows the partner's body language and knows when to stop.
Okay. Have you ever had a scene gone bad?
Yes, I did. The first person who got me interested in BDSM and breath play and had me trained. I did not know at the time that she was using. She stopped breathing, was non-responsive. I gave her CPR, and after about 3 minutes, she was breathing on her own and woke up. And when I asked her, well, why, what happened, she told me she was using, and I couldn't stay with her anymore. She put her needs and her addiction before her safety.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that's a no-go. I'll walk away from it every time.
Right.
I mean, it isn't something that you can do where either partner has been drinking. Nobody can be doing drugs. The Dom has to have their senses, and the submissive has to have their body under control.
Okay. Good. Well, what are, is there anything, some websites people can go to or any information out there that they can read or get their hands on to learn more for the people that need that visual?
Well, the grandfather of BDSM, the person who wrote the first BDSM book, he was an EMT. He has strongly recommended against no one ever trying this, never, ever, ever, never. So with that blanket statement, most people treat it as though the subject is verboten and will not touch it with a 10-foot pole. People are afraid of being sued, so there aren't any books on it. Mm-hmm. You're going to find a lot of your stuff. There is a couple that I know. I don't know them, but I've seen their work. They're out of Colorado. Breathless Angel.
Okay.
They do a lot of breath play videos that you can watch. He'll set up the scene and then let it go from there. He's really good. Other than that, a lot of the other things are either extremely risky and come out of China, and some of the models don't have a long career or are faked and simulated.
All right. Well, this is This has really been insightful. We were talking a little bit about CPR earlier, and I don't want to bore the listeners, but at the same time, you were talking about even having to keep up with the most current CPR, that the United States doesn't even have the most current regulations or rules or practice.
Well, they have the most current. They went to chest compression only because everyone is worried about gaining a disease, gaining AIDS, hepatitis, herpes. Everyone is germophobic. Most people, when they see somebody hurt, struggling, will try and render aid. The American Lung Association was extremely upset that the American Heart Association was fostering the idea of chest compression only. Mm-hmm. Years previous, they taught how to do single-person and two-person CPR. They've done away with that, no rescue breaths. The body can only go a few minutes without oxygenated blood. And just doing compressions on somebody, you might get their heart started, but they're going to be a vegetable because you haven't had the lungs filled. It's not so much you're giving oxygen when you're breathing into their lungs, it's that you're causing the body's natural breathing apparatus to kick in again.
Okay.
If somebody stops breathing, if you give them rescue breaths, it's inflating the lungs, deflating the lungs, and you're hoping that the body's mechanism will kick in and they'll start breathing on their own.
Wow. Something I hope I never have to do, but... Hold on, I think I lost you.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, good. So we just had a... Okay. I'm going to hit stop for a second. We're going to stop. We're going to pause. Okay, great. We're back. We lost you just for a second, but we're going to go ahead and say goodnight to our listeners. But what I'd like to know from you, Richard, if there's anything you have to add, where people can find you if they have questions, and any other thoughts you might have about breath play.
Well, the thing that I'd like to add is if you are interested, if you do have questions, you need to ask somebody who knows what they're doing. And you see somebody, they've got all kinds of really neat pictures on their profile and everything. Ask for references. I have references from demonstrations given. Ask to talk to the last person they did breath play to. If they can't come up with that person, I wouldn't play with them.
Okay, that's really good. And where can people find you if they wanted to shoot you a question?
Easiest place is on FetLife. My FetLife ID is NE_Prophet, PROPHET. Okay,
great. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us with this very serious subject. That's really, it was very good information. We appreciate you and all you do.
You're welcome.
Okay. Have a wonderful night.
Mm-hmm.
For more hot, sexy stuff, visit AnnaliseFry.com. Ask her questions, make suggestions, and discover new ways to get even hotter in the bedroom. Now, how the hell are you going to remember to spell that? AnnaliseFrei.com. Adults only, not for kids 18 and under.